Okay. All right. What's up, everyone? This is Isaac with Hunger Smash Fitness coming to you once again now that the Shaw Classic is over and we can finally talk about the results a little bit. And joining me today is my friend, Tyler, World's Strongest Blacksmith. So, yeah, I guess we'll just jump straight into it. So, yeah, going through the events for the Shaw Classic, we had the max log is what we started with, where we just went to max weight. Super yoke, which ended up being 507 kilograms for 24 meters. Bag over bar, which was 8 implements. And so they had 2 at 23 and so on up to 29. And then the squat lift, and that was 800 pounds or 371 kilograms for as many reps as you could do. And so that was day 1. And then day 2 was the max deadlift, the medley, which was 2 sandbags into the wheelbarrow, and then the wheelbarrow to the arm over arm apparatus, and then as far as you could hoist up the apparatus. And then the dumbbell press, 110 kilograms for 75 seconds, and the Atlas stones end up being 5 stones, 159 kilograms to 204 kilograms. So that's a very heavy series, in my opinion, at least. So just from that, any comments so far, Tyler, or should we just go ahead and get started with the actual day 1, day 2 stuff?
Yeah. I thought that medley was just insane to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple comments when we get to the medley where it was brutal. I've talked to Bobby Thompson and a couple of the other guys afterwards and everything, and all of them said that was just one of the most insane medleys they've done. So
yeah.
Okay,
I got the live stream pulled up on a separate monitor behind my phone.
Oh, nice. There you go. You're cheating. You're taking notes.
No, I got it blown up bigger for me.
Oh, there you go.
And
nice.
I can see the comments.
So so I did a poll beforehand, and I've had a couple more votes after I talked about it last time. It was pretty interesting. So we had 3 people that thought Gabe Pena was going to win it, 5 that thought Big Z would, 1 for Constantine, 1 for Bobby Thompson, 4 for Evan Singleton, 10 for Brian Shaw, and then 4 for JF Crone, and 1 for Maxime. And I mean, honestly, only one of them is the actual winner. So I thought that the poll was fairly interesting because I went in thinking that it was going to be a no-brainer that Brian would win it just because of the events and everything. But as we'll find out, it didn't quite go according to the actual plan. So here is the day 1 results. So on the left, you'll see what I estimated was going to be the outcome of day 1. And then on the right was the actual outcome. So with the max log, I should have converted all of these into kilograms. I just left it as pounds. But if you actually calculate it out, you can kind of see that a lot of the guys didn't quite get to what their max log was. Some of them did significantly better than what I was expecting. But yeah, you want to talk about the log at all?
Yeah, I think that the altitude up there was definitely a big factor on the log and on several events. In my opinion, Brian's log is the same anywhere he goes. It's because he trains at the altitude and everything. But everyone else, I wasn't quite disappointed, but at the same time, it felt like they weren't where they needed to be at that. Trey surprised me with his and Zadrunas. I thought Zadrunas was down. I thought he was only going to be like 190-ish, but he did do it what he was going to do.
Yeah,
I think Zadrunas gives him another 6 months, and he'll be back to World's Strongest Man level if he was dedicated.
Yeah. Well, I think Big Z is interesting because he did 190 or 200 in competition just a couple weeks ago. And he pretty much equaled that. So 420, if you calculate it out, it's right around, it's like 197, I think, or something like that. So it's right in that range. But I was really surprised. There were a couple of the guys. Who else was it? Let me see. There were a couple of the guys that I just thought were significantly off. Well, and I guess we should mention as well, because the starting weight was 380 on the log. No, 400. So 400 was the starting weight. And there's a couple of the guys that just don't really have a shot at that. If you see what their max log was in the past, I didn't think that they were going to have that. Adam Bishop surprised me because the max log that I could find him doing was a 170, which is, what does that convert to? I think that's around 380 or something like that. So I think he actually had a personal record at this competition. I need to double check that. So there were a couple of guys like that where I was like, oh, like they did better than what I was thinking they were going to do. And then there were a couple of the others. There were some that I felt really bad for. Gabe Pena. Gabe really gave it his all. Like, watching him was phenomenal. He really put his heart and soul into it. But it was a brutally heavy competition. Like I said, I've talked to a couple of the guys after the competition, and all of them said that this is one of the heaviest contests they've ever done. And then add in the altitude and everything else, and it was just it was very brutal. Yeah, I was really surprised though. Traded the 455 log. I was not expecting that. And then Bobby, I was actually expecting him to go a little bit heavier. But and Graham as well. Although Graham was not feeling 100% with this competition. Let me see. Oh, and then we have a comment from Eloy. Bish did 180 for a triple in training. He's really been working on his own. Oh, I didn't know that. I tried to double check everybody's Instagrams and all that sort of stuff before doing all the predictions and all of that. And obviously, I went through Strongman Archives, so that's Eloy's thing. Tried to do all my research, but you're always going to miss something here and there. And hey, what's up, my block? And I do, yeah. Tyler messaged me spur of the moment as I was getting ready and asked if he could come on. Said he had some comments and some opinions on the contest as well. So it's always a little bit easier when there's two people operating it instead of just one person. But I agree, he's a fantastic co-host. So yeah, let's head over to the super yoke. So not all of these times are the actual exact times. Some of them are guesstimations, some of them are exact, but either way, the placing is exact. So the actual placing right here, how many points that they got and all that, is the exact placing that they did. With this, Evan blew me away. I was expecting him, so I was expecting him to get about fourth, fifth, somewhere in that range, and so I gave him 12 points. But he dominated. He was fast on that, and especially in day two, Evan, there were a couple events where Evan really showed that he's a fantastic strongman. He's really coming into his own, I think, with that. Was there anything that surprised you with the super yoke, Tyler?
Not really. The times were about where I expected to be on it. Really, the only thing that surprised me was the way that it was set up. The turnarounds, a lot of people are taking a lot of time on the turnaround. Yeah.
I think anytime you're going to get into, especially a really heavy yoke like that, I think people are just going to take more time. It's, I mean, I guess I can't quite speak to this. The heaviest yoke I've ever done was like at 890 for, I think it was 50 feet down and back, just in training, and like, completed it, no drops and everything. But it's something where like you get that much weight on your back and it it kind of pushes you into the ground a bit. Like you feel it afterwards. And so especially with them doing the super yoke and then doing the squat lift and then the next day going into the deadlift and everything, I was just like, I know these guys were hurting afterwards. I'm sure they felt absolutely miserable, but I thought it was pretty fantastic. The super yoke looked really good. I was watching JF carefully because I know it sounded like his hamstring was up to like 90%, and so he still did fairly decently. And if you look at a lot of these times, like a lot of the top guys, they're only a couple seconds apart. So there's that. And then again, I felt really bad for Gabe with that. He had a pretty rough competition overall. There were a couple people that were saying Gabriel Room, or I am not completely sure how to say that because I am not French, so I'll have to have someone who is French explain to me how to say his last name. But there were a couple people that were saying he was going to completely smoke everybody else on the super yoke, and he did really well. But there were a couple guys that were just really fast this year. What's up?
Yeah, Gabriel from my understanding, in Canada, he's known as like our Rob Kearney for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Kearney's like Kearney teaches a master class in super yoke every time he does it, and Room is almost the same way.
Oh, interesting.
What I've heard.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him more. Like he obviously, you know, the only other show that I've seen him with anything was Canada's Strongest Man, and so there's not a lot to go off of with that. But you know, there were some things that he really struggled on, but there were some things that he's really strong with, and it'll be interesting to see over the next couple years. Now that Canada has 3 decent representatives, you know, with JF, Maxime, and now Gabe, it'll be kind of fun to see how they start competing head to head. Let's see. So we have some comments. My blocks. If you're talking about Bish, I hope he's rest up in time to perform well at Europe's. I agree. Yeah, that's coming up. Is that in 2 days now? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's this Saturday.
Yeah, that's gonna. It looks like yeah, if you're interested in looking at more of the upcoming competitions in September, I did a live stream the other day about it. So just go to my channel and go to my content, and we can see all that.
Yeah, for the next 3 months, it's just going to be outrageous in the strongman community.
Oh, they have a ton coming up. Yeah. Let's see. Trey had the best turn on the super yoke. One of the many things he did right at that contest. I agree. Trey really demonstrated why he's such a great strongman at this contest. There have been some contests where, you know, he ends up middle of the pack or worse and just kind of doesn't quite perform how you expect him. But with this one, he was consistently one of the top placings, and yeah, he's a pretty great strongman. Let's see. Oh, and then so it's Rayom. Oh, we have Eloy as well. Rayom. Awesome. I will keep that in mind. I will try to say his name correctly from now on. So yeah, there were a couple of the guys I felt bad for. I expected Graham to finish the super yoke. Actually, I expected him to be one of the top guys with the super yoke, and obviously he's still injured. He's still kind of fighting that a little bit. Felt bad for him with that, but overall, yeah, the super yoke was fantastic. That was fun to watch. So on to bag over bar. So bag over bar was a little bit frustrating because we didn't really know how many bags or anything they were going to have or what the weight was. And so all of my guesstimations were based off of a 5-bag or 6-bag series. And so there ended up being 8, and they ended up being a little bit heavier than what I was thinking, but yeah, it was still fun. It's one of those things where there were a couple of the guys, who was it? So Zadrunas, yeah, Zadrunas got 2 bags, And there were a couple of the guys that just really struggled. And it wasn't necessarily, a lot of them had the power, but they didn't have the accuracy. So they were throwing it above the bar, but it wouldn't actually go over the bar. And that's always kind of frustrating to see. And that's one of those things where, you know, if that's happening, like you just need to put the time in and train your accuracy more. But yeah, who was it? Maxime. Yeah, Maxime put in an actual dominating clinic with that. He was insanely fast. And then you can see, so he did all 8 in 28 seconds, and then Brian did 8 in about twice that time. And that was second place. So Maxime, yeah, he's a pretty fast guy. I will say that much. Yeah, what were your opinions on the bag over bar?
Maxine surprised me. I think he had like a little grudge going on with Brian over Worlds with the keg. And he's got explosive power. But
Yeah.
one of the things that kind of frustrated me was he had so many ties on that, where I also think it should have been like bag in time, where you did 2 in this and 3 in this, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I think that would have helped it space it out a little more.
That was one of the things that I found a little confusing, because I thought they were going off of time, but then you have Bobby and Constantine that tied up, and then Zadrunas and Jerry Pritchett that tied up. And so if you're going to the 100th of a second, I highly doubt they actually did that. So I'm not sure if they were just like, if you did 2 in the same seconds, then they split the points, or I'm not completely sure how they figured that out right there. But yeah, overall, I think bag over bar was a great event. Mikhail also did really well. I was expecting him, yeah, so I gave him 7 points in my estimation, and he did 7 bags, but he got 13 points. And then what's that?
Everyone knows Mikhail knows how to throw back. He's kept up with Thor and Brian, and almost every time it's been held at the Arnold's.
Yeah, that's true. Mikhail's one of those guys where he's not consistent, and so it kind of depends on in my opinion, I think it kind of depends on which Mikhail shows up. Like there's some times where he's very dominant, and then there's other times where he just kind of, I don't know, there's something lacking, I guess. But yeah, he did really well with that. And I was just assuming with some of the other guys that were there, you know, with Ivers and Maxime and Brian and everything, I was assuming he'd be a little bit further down, but I guess I assumed wrong in that. Yeah, and then with the squat lift. So the squat lift was interesting because there were a couple guys that just decided not to do it. So Evan Singleton, who was it? Evan Singleton, and then Gabe Pena and Jerry Pritchett, I guess, decided not to do it. And then Ivers and Graham both zeroed. Oh, and then Mikhail withdrew right before. And then so Mikhail was out for the rest of the contest. But with the squat rep, so with 800 pounds on the bar, and Tyler, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, because I've never done an actual squat, like a car squat apparatus like they had set up. But 20 reps for Kevin, like that's insane. That was
it's in my opinion, with a car squat versus a barbell squat, it's like, you ever done a Smith's machine? Anyone who's ever done a Smith's machine on a squat, or I can't remember what type of squat, a hack squat.
Okay.
It's really similar that range of motion and the arc versus you. It's more of an arcing motion than an up and down motion with a car squat. And so you can have someone who does 1,000 pounds on a barbell, like they were talking about. Graham is 1,000-pound raw squatter on Lawrence's page, but you transition over that, and it's different.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he did still have an injury that he was fighting and everything, and it kind of seemed to his injury seemed to kind of nag him throughout the contest as well. So that could have played into it as well. But I was assuming he was at least going to get a couple reps. And then, I mean, you can see, Brian, Trey, and JF, they all got 16 reps with it. Like that's still an insane amount. And Zadrunas was hilarious because when he went up to start going, his first rep, I thought he wasn't going to make his first rep. And I thought, like, I was kind of like, oh, great. Like, he's done on rep number 1. There goes his, whatever. Then he busts out 12. It was like he just kept going. I was like, all right, Z, you still got it a little bit. He's still.
Yeah. Zadrunas always seems to have to find a rhythm in every rep. It's like he seems.
I know.
But he's not like someone who can just now it's more pronounced, but back then he was just someone who could power, who had the brute power just to go and do it. But lately it seems like that Zadrunas and Brian and Caron, they have to find that rhythm, and then they can get a lot of reps and
I mean
show that they still got it.
Yeah, and they're a little older. They're probably a little stiffer. They've been lifting heavy for 20 years or more. Some of them, and like Zadrunas, he's been competing for 23 years now, something like that. So I
think Zadrunas's first amateur strongman contest was in like 92, and his first World's appearance was in 99.
Okay, I was thinking 98, but either way, he's been doing it for a long time, and the fact that he can still, keep up for the most part. I mean, so he finished what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he finished 7th at the end of day 1, and that was with having a horrible event with the bag over bar. Everything else, he was fairly up there, and I don't know. Z is an interesting one, but we can talk more about him when we get to day 2 as well. Some of them I thought it was a little interesting because I expected Evan. I know he said he was kind of hurt, and so he opted out of doing the squat to try and save himself for the day 2. I'm not sure if it fully paid off, but I mean, I don't know how hurt he was either, so we'll see. But yeah, I just think it's crazy. Kevin is so ridiculously strong for his size. And it was hilarious watching the video because he's one of the smallest guys out there, and he's out there busting out 20 reps with the squat. So
he's not as short as Bishop and I don't think and Hicks and Graham. Yeah. But he's just so much lighter. He's 6'2" and like 290 versus Graham, who's 5'10" and 350.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think we just assume, I mean, Graham looks strong, and Kevin, he looks strong, but because he's smaller, like you don't expect him to put up that kind of weight. And then you see him, when we get to the Hummer deadlift and the squat lift and all that sort of stuff, you're like, oh, like you're a really strong dude for your size. And still finishing. I was gonna say still finishing with 35.5 points at the end of the day. Like that's still really good. But sorry, what were you gonna say?
I also think like Fairs and Hicks and Bishop and Kearney, they all have to be technicians in the sport because their height and their size. And I honestly believe Kevin can really put Kearney's pound for pound strongest man title out of the gate.
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kevin. I would say Kevin pound for pound is the strongest man in strongman, at least right now. I'm not sure, I don't know worldwide because I don't know everybody worldwide. I don't have anything to go off of. I'm sure there's some farm kid in Oklahoma or, Bodunk, Russia who's stronger, but be that as it may. All right, well, let's head over to day 2 and look at how that fared. So with that one, Brian did get the majority of the points. JF got second, and then Trey got the third most points. So, and I was assuming Brian was going to win both days. So I at least got that one correct with this one. Placings were a little bit different. Some of them were a bit off because Zadrunas did withdraw at the end of day 1. I hope he gets healed up because apparently he has a couple more competitions coming up. And then like Evan was super dominant in day 2. So he won 2 out of 4 of the events and then placed fairly high, middle of the pack with the other 2. But yeah, let's start off with the max deadlift. So what was your opinion of the deadlift?
I really liked it. Watching it, it was good. Seeing the guys hyping each other up. There's that one scene where Gabriel Pinas just slaps Evan's back and he tenses up.
Yep.
There was some placings that I thought weren't going to be there. Maxine, I really thought he was going to get the opening 900 pounds. Lift in room. I think he should have gotten it because I think room did 400. He's a 400 kilo puller from standard.
Yeah. The highest I could find him doing was 445. So same here. I assumed he was going to get a couple reps, 1 or 2, but I also didn't know what the opening weight was either. So, but yeah, I mean, either way, I was a little bit surprised by Maxime. He still did fairly decently overall. And then there were a couple of guys, even with injury, Graham was still doing pretty well. Gabe hung in there. Gabe with the max deadlift, so he may struggle with some other events. Deadlift is one of the ones where he is ridiculously strong.
He called back some points on day 2.
Yeah. I was so happy with, because it was really difficult to see him struggle so much day 1, and day 2 he actually did a little bit there, so that made me feel a little bit better about him.
Adam,
go for it.
I was slightly disappointed not to see Mikhail do the deadlift, just because. Yeah.
I know Mikhail's always fun on deadlift because he'll turn this well, we've all seen the video from the Arnold and everything else where it looks like he's gonna fail the lift, and then 10 seconds later he finally locks it out, and you're like, that's the longest 1 rep max I've ever watched in my life. Mikhail knows how to grind when the time comes.
When he set the Masters deadlift world record, that was, everyone talks about RPM rep effort, rep potential effort. That was not 10, that was 100.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, and that was a true RPE 10. That's what it actually is, where it's it takes 100% effort to finish the lift. Yeah, that was pretty sick, crazy to watch. So we have a couple other comments. Let me see. So my blog says, what did you guys think of the different positioning stances guys took on car squat? Looked like there was a line they had to put their feet on, but I could be wrong.
I think I saw the line, but I think that line was where they wanted the arch of their foot to be.
Yeah. One. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if it was a reference or if it was just if it was an actual foot placement thing. I'm not positive. I haven't heard either way on it. But with any type of squat, I mean, everyone's going to have a slightly different stance, and it is kind of, it depends on, you got to figure out what works best for you. And that's a lot harder when you're stuck, in a Smith machine or a car squat apparatus or something like that, where it forces you into a specific line of movement. So your regular squatting pattern will have to change slightly. Yeah, either way, I really want to get a car squat apparatus and try it out. Try and, I don't know, squat the minivan or something. See what we can do.
Come down here and train with me one day.
Yeah, well, you have one, or
I'm making one up now. I have done one in the past, so I have an experience with them.
I'll have to test it out. Well, what do you think of the different stances and all that sort of stuff for the car squat?
I'm on the shorter side, and I like to squat and deadlift with a quite wide stance. So my deadlift and squat stance is exactly the same. I can deadlift and squat exactly the same. My deadlift is 600. I squat 600, and there's not a single pound difference in either.
Huh? Yeah, because I usually deadlift with a slightly narrower stance, and then I squat with a slightly wider stance. So mine does vary just a little bit, and then it also depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm doing a snatch grip deadlift or something like that, then I'll widen my stance just a hair for that, and I'll turn my toes out just a little bit more for that. So I guess it kind of depends on what I'm doing, because if I'm doing a safety squat bar or something, my chance will change just a little bit versus if I'm doing a regular barbell squat. But yeah, I guess a lot of it with the squatting and deadlifting though is just, figure out how your body works best with that, what its natural movement pattern is, and what feels most comfortable. So let me see. So I said in my video that Evan's first circus dumbbell press was perhaps the most beautiful circus rep I'd ever seen.
We're not there yet.
No, Evan shocked me with the dumbbell press. I will say that much.
Yeah.
Let's see. Gabe Pena's 1,100-pound deadlift was effort of the day, in my opinion. Fought it just right and pulled it out. I agree. Gabe, I expected him to do well with the max deadlift, and he did not disappoint. He can definitely perform in that event when he's required to. Let me see. And then this one, speaking of Shiv, Trey Mitchell fought 1,150 pounds for like 12 seconds. I know. Trey, Trey's a beast. He, it's tough to say because, I used to say like, oh, maybe with some of the moving events and such, he's not as good or whatever. And with the medley, we saw that a little bit, but I think also it was more just fatigue at the end of the day. With the super yoke, he was second in that. And so it's kind of one of those things where I used to be more inclined to say that Trey was he was one of the more like static monsters, basically. But he's getting fast, and dude can perform when required. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I was expecting Kevin would probably do just a hair more. But going from 950 to 1,000 pounds is a pretty big jump if that's at your max range. So I think that's fair. What's up?
Yeah, I think at the Arnold's they do 50, and then they allow them to do a 25-pound jump when they did this event. They went by 50s, and then if someone, once they started to weed out the field, they started doing 25 and 50-pound jumps for the people that wanted to do that.
Yeah. And Well, and I thought it was really interesting because JF sat out the first couple, so his first rep was it at 1,000 or 1,100? I don't remember, but he waited till
I
basically the
think it was.
end.
I think he did 900, the 950, skipped 1,000, 1,050, did the 11, and did the 1150.
Okay, I thought he skipped everything all the way up to the 11. I'll have to double check that, but either way, he skipped a bunch, and he still made it look like butter. Like JF is a phenomenal deadlifter, and I was pretty happy with the way Adam kept right in there. Adam was hitting everyone and doing it fast. Adam made it look really easy.
My John just posted a comment. Kevin skipped 1,000 and went to the 1050, which is why he got stuck with the 950.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's right. Okay, I do remember that now.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah. So that's why he ended up with the 950. But either way, I mean, Kevin's a strong dude. Yeah, Evan, I was expecting to end up kind of right around there. Honestly, with the way Brian's been performing lately, I was expecting him to hit 1,000 and maybe stop after that. But he did get the 1050. So
yeah,
good for him on that. And then I felt bad for Jerry. Jerry, I mean, you could tell that he was really hurting. And, last year he was right up there with JF. He was going head to head for the world record, all that other stuff. And this year you could just tell that Jerry was not feeling good. He was pretty hurt.
Yeah. It seems like throughout Jerry's career, he has good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good year, bad year.
I know. He's a little bit injury prone.
Yeah. And Brian has definitely been putting work into his deadlift. I think Brian honestly has a chance of getting 500 now after seeing his attempt here of joining the 500 club.
Possibly. I think
if he put 6 months, he could definitely gain the world record back. Get the world record again.
I think he would need a good reason to do it though, because I feel like Brian's at the point where he already
title,
has
not record.
Yeah. He's already had so many world records or still has so many world records. I don't feel like he's really that driven to get more. I feel like he really wants his 5th title. And that's his singular driving focus, basically.
My opinion, if Brian's going to get a 5th title, it needs to be a max deadlift, a dumbbell for reps, an explosive event like sandbag or
keg over bar. He does the best, I think, with keg
over bar, and truck pull. He's still one of the best at truck pull. And then not a light set of Atlas stones like 100 to 180. I mean like 140 to 240. Like the heaviest set of stones ever used in comp is what Brian needs.
The only downside is a lot of those events Tom's really good at as well. So you'd have to, well, except maybe not the dumbbell. Yeah.
And max deadlift.
And max
Tom's deadlift
Tom's
is
getting better
up there, but I don't think Tom's max deadlift is where Brian's max deadlift is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know, like I said, Brian did more than I was expecting, and so I was a little bit shocked at that. Maybe
Brian could have pulled 500 that day.
Yeah. Maybe he is gunning for it again. I haven't seen much indicating that he is, but if he wants to give it a shot, I'd say go for it. JF is one of those ones too where I'm like, man, why aren't you going for the 500 kilogram deadlift? Because like the dude's insane with deadlifting. He makes it look way too easy. So
he's pulled 100 pounds heavier just from a couple inches higher.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was talking to him. He said the heaviest deadlift that he's done was he did a car deadlift where the starting weight was, I think he said it was like 14 something, but it was elevated. It was at like a 18-inch handle or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, or 1500 something. It was something ridiculous. And
The 20-inch deadlift world record is like 1,600 pounds from
yeah,
20 inches, which is right above most people's knees. It's only like a 2 or 3 inch range of motion.
I could probably do that.
It's like from the floor I can pull 600 pounds, but you move that up to 20 inches, which is above my knee.
Yeah.
I have a very short inseam. I have a 28-inch inseam.
Oh man,
I jump up
you're
to like
lucky.
900 pounds. I jump up to like 900 pounds on deadlift.
Man,
On from 20 inches.
Yeah, I have these ridiculously long legs, so I have about a 37-inch inseam, and so when I do an 18-inch deadlift, it's still about 2 inches below the bottom of my kneecap. So it's one of those things where like,
I'm weirdly proportioned. I have a 28-inch inseam and a 6'4" wingspan at 5'10".
there you go. Makes you really good at certain things. So squat, deadlift.
Yeah.
But well, let's move on to the medley. The medley did not go how I was expecting it to.
The medley was brutal to everyone.
It was very brutal.
That was the most brutal medley I've ever seen in competition.
Yeah.
When Law says Brian was trying to kill someone, I think Brian was trying to kill someone.
Yeah. The one thing, so Evan, when he did it, like he made it look pretty easy, and then afterwards, when it panned over to him, he's sitting there yelling and shouting at the crowd and everything. I was like, how do you still have energy? How do you Kevin was sitting there laying on the floor gasping for air. Like everybody, when they stopped, was laying there gasping, and Evan's one of the only guys who jumped up and seemed like he felt great. And I was like, Evan, what? I don't know.
When we talk about the medley, I think we had to talk about Janasha.
Yeah,
he gave it all on the medley.
I know.
He gave it all.
Well, and Gabe Pena as well. I mean, Gabe, you could see he was hurting. He fell on the ground. He was laying there for a while. And then he got back up and he kept working towards it. And like, yeah, man. Well, then it was so funny too, because Bobby, got it over to the actual arm over arm and then sat there tugging on it for a little bit, and it didn't even break the floor. And then he finally like reset and pulled it, and so it got like an inch off the floor or something like that. And then he called it good. And,
that was that arm over arm pull was extreme. I think someone said when I was watching it that for every foot of pull they were doing with the rope as it was coming out was 6 inches of height off the floor.
Yeah, that's what I heard. And it had to go, I think the total distance was 2.9 meters to hit the top. So it's, what was that, 11 feet, 12 feet, somewhere around there?
12.5 feet.
Somewhere around
there. I have to do a lot of metric. I have to do a lot of metric imperial conversions in my line of work.
Yeah. So you have to pull the rope 25 feet basically to get the apparatus to the top. And the fact that some of the guys finished was just insane.
Yeah, I think Brian's going to have some fun with that implement because
I
was looking at it. I was seeing possibilities for like training truck pull with it too. And I mean that you could set that up to train truck pull.
Yeah, to do like an arm over arm pull, or are you talking like hook it up with a harness and pull it?
Yeah, a harness truck pull, like a harness pull. For like training truck pull.
We could see Brian might try and throw something like that in the future. I wouldn't put it past him, to be honest.
Because that setup's great for when you don't have the space. You could have I don't think there's ever been a head-to-head truck pull in any comp. That type of setup could be a head-to-head truck pull setup.
Yeah, we can. We'll have to shoot Brian a message and let him know all of our fantastic ideas. He probably already has the next competition well in the works, I would think, with the way he is.
Yeah.
But on the my block says Max took O2 before sitting for the arm over arm. Yeah, I think everybody was taking a hit of the oxygen either
I don't think
afterwards
Evan
or
did.
during.
I don't think Evan did it all.
Yeah, that's true.
Or Brian. I don't think Brian did it all either.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect Brian to, just because that's how he trains anyways. So I'm sure his lungs are fantastic, but I think almost everybody that I saw seemed like they were breathing in either before or after, or like with Max during. Like Max still did really well, even with taking a break to take oxygen. Like that just kind of shows how brutal the full medley was. It was fun to watch. If you guys haven't bought the membership to watch the contest yet, please head over to the Shaw Elite Club and do the 1 month subscription, or buy the membership and then cancel it or whatever. But just watch the show because it was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, you had Maxine winning it, and he came in sixth.
Yeah, and because I didn't know the full weight of everything and all that, and so I was assuming that he was going to place really well, because he does do fairly well with a lot of the medleys and everything.
I think out of this group, I think he's one of the only ones that done wheelbarrow in recent.
There, let me see, because I think because they had it. How long? Well, no, that was like 2-3 years ago, I guess. Now, yeah, they haven't had a lot of wheelbarrow stuff recently, or arm over arm stuff recently, to be honest, at Worlds or Giants or anything like that. So
the closest would be the flag hoist at Bahrain, but that's a different beast from this type.
Yeah. Well, and then if you're Alexi, that's more jumping than anything. So it wasn't much of an arm over arm.
Yeah. Alexi really put talent out on that one.
Yeah. Well, and I think also Alexi watched some of the other guys. Yeah, I think Alexi watched some of the other guys struggle with it and realized you can just jump and grab as high as you can, and then let your body weight do all the work for you instead of struggling with it. But well, let's move on to the dumbbell press. So this one, for one thing, Brian really surprised me, because Brian usually is pretty much unbeatable unless Alexi is there or something like that in a dumbbell type event. He dominates, and
I think that dumbbell was a little too heavy. For the range Brian is normally known to dominate the dumbbell press at.
Last year, though, it was the same weight, and he was still able to get 7 reps with it. The only guy who beat him last year was Alexi.
I think last year's was 100 and this year was 110. Or was it the same dumbbell?
I think last year was 110.
Yeah. Most dumbbell for them is 100 kilos.
Yeah. Typically, that's what you'll see. And I know Brian wanted to do, like, everything in Brian's show is a little bit heavier than what they typically do.
Yeah, the Atlas stones were bigger too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, going from 159 to 204 or whatever it was, where was the 159 to 204 kilograms. That's an insanely heavy stone run.
Worlds is, I think, 120. I think they do a 100 to a 180 is what they've been using at all the, like, Manchester and whatnot. And then they have a light and then they have a heavy, and I think their heavy that's
the 120
to 200.
Yeah. And so Brian's was similar ending weight, but his starting weight was, 29 kilograms heavier. And so every single stone is heavier than the regular heavy set. And yeah, well, we can talk more about the stones in a minute, but the dumbbell press. Oh, and here, let me see. My blog says dumbbell press, my biggest disappointment. They panned away from JF as he was doing the rep. That was one more than Brian. I agree. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that was left out of it that I thought was going to be in there.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with like the like they didn't show all the points and everything at the end, or all the times for everything at the end of every event.
Yeah,
and
they
so
just showed
it's one of those
points
things where it was
and
a little
placings.
disappointing just because
Yeah, they just showed points and placings, but not like times or times or reps or whatnot or distance.
Yeah. So that was a little bit frustrating. That's something that, like, it'd be nice if they would do more of in future, but it's not going to break the competition to not show that, I guess. But yeah, there were a couple guys. So let me see, because Z and Mikhail withdrew. Gabe Rayom, I think is how you say his name. He struggled with it for a while, and Graham as well struggled with it for a while. Gabe Pena, I don't remember his performance. But there what's that?
If I remember, Hicks should have had one rep, but I don't think they got it.
Yeah, there were a couple guys, because I think Adam had one as well where he almost locked it out and then didn't quite. And who's the other one? There was another guy who like locked it out and didn't wait for the down signal, and so they didn't get the rep.
Did Janasha not do the dumbbell at all?
I don't think so. I don't remember him doing it. I don't remember with that. Yeah, so there were a couple things that were disappointing with it, I guess. Let me see. Oh, John says my highlight low light video is about to go out. Yeah, so if you're watching this and you have not followed and subscribed to My Block Strongest Man, please check him out. He and I work together a lot of the time with stuff, and we've been talking a bit. He wants to do a highlight low light video of all the things that went well and the things that did not go very well with the Shaw Classic. There were a lot of things that I found fairly frustrating. And here he's commenting. Let's see. So Janasha did not do the dumbbell. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Adam on max log was the one who went down before the down signal. I thought there were one or two guys with the dumbbell as well that had a similar thing happen.
Adam had to do it twice because, yeah, I've heard a lot of controversy over that, but I'm on the side where Adam had to do the second attempt because that was definitely not under. He had it locked out. He just wasn't under control.
Yeah, and I think. And he's saying, let's see, that was yes. Adam had it locked out. Magnus was slow on the signal. So I agree a little bit with that. Well, here, I'll leave that comment up there for a minute. Magnus was a little bit slow on the signal, but Magnus is waiting for the athlete to demonstrate stability. And Magnus is well known for being very strict on that. Magnus is very strict with every athlete, including Hofthor, which was part of the whole argument back in the day between Hofthor and Eddie, which is why we have this boxing match coming up and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, Magnus is well known for being very strict with the rules and with the execution of different events, regardless of the athlete. And with Adam's rep with the log, so I do remember that now, it was it was sketchy. It was still wobbling a little bit. I don't know. It's one of those ones where like, yeah, maybe he could have called it. He could have given it to him. But Magnus is pretty strict across the board generally. So he's not really going to give slack to one person if he's not going to give it to someone else. Can we talk about that? It was a way better decision to have Magnus under the ref this time instead of the commentator. I agree. Magnus is a fantastic ref. Terry did pretty well as a commentator. I was actually I wasn't sure how he was going to do that, but
Terry's definitely a good commentator. Very good. I think the former strongman commentators are Kaz and Terry. They are the best at it.
Yeah.
In terms of former strongman.
Or Eddie. I think Eddie is an entertaining commentator as well. Martine's watching some of his stuff. I'm like, I think you're a better athlete than a commentator.
Benny, I watch. It's been forever. No one's talked about Benny in forever. But
Benedict Magnuson?
There was. Yeah. I saw something that he commentated on. It was the funniest commentation I've ever watched.
He's a hoot. I love it when he puts up videos and stuff. That he's a hilarious guy. So I could see him doing commentating really well.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's also quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the guys are. I mean, especially if you're not used to being on TV or anything like that, like it's weird because people are watching you and they're listening to what you have to say. And so, you always have that thing in the back of your head where you're like, whatever I say is up forever. And we've all seen the talking head fails basically of whatever. So
yeah,
there's always that, I guess.
I think he would be good at the commentating, but not asking the questions because he's well known for the one-word interview. What you say? Yes? No? That was basically Benny whenever he was asked a question.
Same with Zadrunas though. Like I love Zadrunas's like post-win when he's getting interviewed and they're like, oh, like, so you won. How do you feel? Excited. Cool. Like, all right, well, any more? Or like Zadrunas he's a hoot to watch with as well. Here, let me see. So Terry said afterwards that he was nervous, but I thought he was very good. I agree. I think Terry did a fantastic job. Yeah, I think Magnus is a better ref than a commentator. Nothing against him as a commentator. I think Terry did it. I think Terry has more of that personality for it. So, all right. Well, should we go off into the Atlas Stones now?
Yeah. I'm ready for that.
Yeah. So I expected Trey to do well. But Trey did really well. He did well, he was 5 seconds faster than Brian. And Brian, he's 2 seconds faster than here. And like, so after Brian, there's a little bit of a cluster where most of those guys were pretty close together. And then after that, a lot of the guys couldn't finish. They couldn't do the last stone. Which granted, a 204 kilogram stone at the end of a 5-stone run is really heavy. Like
Adam, if he had that last stone, Adam would have been. I think Adam was on pace to get first place on that because 4 and 24.5, and Trey and 5 and 28.
I think with where Adam was though, because I think he would have finished right at like 31 or 32 seconds if he would have gotten it. So I think he would have ended up in like second place overall. But yeah, I mean, be that as it may, like if you slip up or whatever, like that affects your placings. But it was tough. I mean, there were some of the guys like Jerry fought it pretty hard, and you could tell he was in pain. Same with Gabe Pena. Like there were a couple of the guys that like you could tell were just giving it their all. Same with Graham. Graham was another one where like they were trying really hard. But I mean, that's a heavy stone. So 204 to pounds is what? That's 444, right around 450 pounds stone.
204 times 2.2.
Yeah, so it'd be like, I can't do quick math in my head.
200 is a 440, so 255.
Somewhere in that
250,
range.
255. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I mean, 450, 450. 450.
Yeah.
Not 250. 250 kilo Atlas.
Yeah. I know what you meant.
That's it.
Yeah. Maybe Travis Ortmeyer back in the day, but
Travis and Trey probably. I mean,
well, I guess Trey these days too. Trey's getting to be I mean, he's always been a decent stone lifter, but he keeps getting better too. Then my blog says, hats off to Constantine being barely able to walk and getting 4 stones. I agree.
Yeah.
Constantine.
Yeah, that's another thing where we had to talk about Constantine, and where we did with the medley, we have to talk about with the stones.
Mm-hmm. He fought it. I mean, you could tell he was in excruciating pain each and every stone. And each stone, you'd see him put it up, and I was like, okay, well, I guess he's done after the first one. And then he went to the second. I was like, oh, I guess he's done after 2. And then he went to the third. Jeez, man.
It's like when Kielskowski tore his bicep and still did 10 stones.
Yeah. You're like, well, and Kielskowski did it one-handed. Like, all right, dude. Yeah, you're a beast. I get it.
That was something.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm actually a little bit bummed they only did the 5 stones instead of 6 stones, because I think having the 6 stones makes it a little bit like
I think the 6th stone was going to be a 225, because Brian had two stones for a 6th stone made.
Yeah,
and they were like 225 kilos.
Yeah, and I kind of like how he did it last year, where it was the 123 kilogram to the 204 kilogram, and then this year he just dropped off the 123, and he did the 159 to 204 kilogram, and it's like I think having that one lighter stone is kind of nice for some of the guys, because like it's a little bit of a warm up, I guess, so it spreads the points out a little bit more, but I don't know. But also doing 6 stones at altitude is really exhausting. So
I think when they had him delivered up in that video, he had 12 crates there, and so and I think someone said that was the heavier stone. It's going to be heavier, but I don't know if it was the heavier stone or the light, or if it was another light stone. But he had 12 stones made, according to like the video. If you look at the video, there look to be 12 crates for the Atlas stones.
Okay, man, that's crazy. Well, so that's kind of the breakdown of day 1 and 2. We can do the actual outcomes with how all the athletes actually finished. So if you haven't figured it out at this point, Trey Mitchell won. He had a total of 104.5 points. Brian came second with 101.5, and JF came in third at 99. There was
I'm not used to seeing such a high pointage count.
I know. Yeah, right? Well, it's with 8 events and 16 athletes. So max points is whatever 8 times 16 is, 120 something.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, 120 something.
80. 8 times 6 is 48. So 128 points.
Yeah, 128. So I mean, either way though, like Trey and Brian, you can tell that like they did really well. And then you can see with Evan, he won 3 of the events.
Yeah, this was a competition of consistency.
Yeah.
I don't know which one of your videos, if it was yours or John's or my box, that I made a comment. It was like a very last minute comment about that Brian didn't make this contest easy on himself, but at the same time, he's giving himself an unfair advantage with 8 events because he is known as the strong man with no weaknesses. He knows each event.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so with some of the events, like the max log, he's good at it, but he's not great. Super yoke, I'd say previously he's been better at it. Lately, he hasn't been as good at it. Bag over bar,
I think he did a 700 kilo yoke once. And
jeez. Oh, at the Arnold, they did it was like a 10-foot or 12-foot.
Yeah, it was like a 10. And then he hasn't in histories and strongest man, when they did the barrel lift, that was essentially 1,000 kilo super yoke pick.
Yeah, which it was just a pick. You just had to stand up with it, which he did. And Nick, what happened?
Nick did like a 900 kilo.
Yeah,
pick.
He was barely behind him, and then hurt his hip or hurt his something. I think
it was his hip that did it.
That's insane, but
I think if there was a max pick on yoke, Brian could do 1,400. Brian's probably the only person that can touch the backlift world record right now by doing a yoke pick and not a backlift.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably fair. Brian. Well, I mean, he's just massive, so he's got the frame for it. Whereas, like, you're never going to see Kevin Fairs do 1,000 kilogram pick.
That's also the thing with
he just doesn't have the bone structure for it, you know.
Yeah. You look at Brian, Tom, and Hafthor are all the same height, but the thing is, Brian's got much wider shoulders and much wider hips than Tom and Hafthor. Tom and Hafthor have narrow hips and narrow shoulders, and Brian has wide shoulders, wide hips. So that's what makes him so good at being able to lift up something heavy. He's able to distribute all that weight more evenly.
And Tom and Hafthor, they both gained the weight to compete with Brian's weight, but
they never looked 450.
It's not as evenly. Yeah, it's not as evenly distributed as with Brian, where Brian is just built. He's built big. I mean, he just has a massive frame.
Looked 450 pounds.
Yeah.
When he was 450 pounds. He's of course a little lighter now. But when Hafthor was 220 kilos when he pulled 501, he didn't look he looked massive. But if I saw him on the street, I would have said he was like 185, 400 pounds, not 490 pounds.
Yeah, because he doesn't have that width that Brian has. Or depth or whatever you'd want to call it, I guess. But I did think it was super interesting because even though Zadrunas did not compete in day 2 at all, he still finished with a fairly respectable score. I mean, considering that he only did 4 out of 8 of the events. I mean, if you multiply this up and if he stays the same, he'd be finishing right in, 7th, 8th place, basically. Which for him being old and retired, That's pretty
He
decent.
could have he could have pulled 1,000 on the max. He probably could have came.
I
I would have placed him 8 on the medley, 2 reps on the dumbbell, and 2 stones.
I think he would have gotten probably 3 stones. And with the deadlift, I think that's the thing with the deadlift though, because like I think if he was healthy, he probably I think could have done the 1100. I think he could have worked up to that. But we'll never know because he was hurt. And
if he takes the next year to train and gets back instead of doing small comps,
yeah,
he has contention to put himself, Brian, because with them two competing against each other at peak performance,
yeah, it brings out a different side in Brian.
No, and it brings out a different side than Savitskas. Tom, Koskowski, Alexei, no one's going to stand a chance against Savitskas or Brian in top performance.
The only caveat to that though is they're both older.
They're not in peak performance.
Yeah, it takes longer for them to hit a peak, and the peak doesn't last as long because they're older. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But they're also at the point where 1-day comps don't suit them as much as a week. But at the same time, they're at the point where 1-day comps suit them more than a week. They're kind of in that mid ground.
Yeah, and they're more prone to injury with age and everything else as well.
But they also got the frames. Support it.
Z, because for a little bit, Z dropped a bunch of the weight and everything, and then when he came back into this comp, like he was looking big, and he.
I think 4 months ago, Z was at 130, and I think he came into this comp at 160.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, he's he put on a bunch of the weight, gained a bunch of the weight back for this competition, or he's been doing a couple different competitions. So
I think the last time he won Worlds, he was 185,
somewhere in that range. Yeah, but the one thing that I did want to mention, so I'm not going to steal all of my block's thunder. If you're interested in knowing all the highs and lows, definitely head over to his channel, My Block Strongest Man, and check out his video. The one that I did want to mention today, though, was Ivers Smoxtelis. It's not Ivers' fault at all, but for some reason in the final announcing of points, they somehow gave him 10 extra points, and so he finished just behind Evan, I think it was. Yeah, just behind Evan. And I and multiple other people have tried to calculate out the points, and we keep ending up with 69 points, not 79 points. And so he finishes down behind Maxime. So in my placing, that's where I have him. I have him down below Maxime here in, what is that, 9th place. But if you do watch the live stream, which, again, I highly encourage you to head over to Brian Shaw, the Shaw Elite Club, get the membership, watch the live stream. It's well worth the money. And for the final, they did somehow end up giving him 10 extra points, which I'm not sure where it came from. So that's just the one.
I'll go back and watch again to see if I can find that out, because I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
until just now.
Yeah, I and several other people, we've gone back, we watched all of the scores with everything and added everything up, and we keep coming up with 69 points. So yeah. There were several things that were frustrating with this show, like with them releasing the video and all that sort of stuff. It was delayed with all those other things, but it's up there forever after. So if you buy the membership, you can watch it whenever you want. And then let me see. My block is saying Z was sporting a power face for this fight. He was. Z looked back to his old form, barrel chested and ready to perform with no expression on his face. He doesn't have a lot of expression. And then there's clamor on my channel for us to also do a high and low together. So we should do that Monday night. I'm down. Let's do it. I have a lot of different lows that I'd like to mention and a lot of different highs that I'd like to mention. So yeah, maybe John, we can get together and we'll do that on a Monday night live stream or something. But yeah, any final comments in it? Any of this? Were there any placings that really surprised you, or did you kind of expect it to be kind of in this order?
The top 8, 9 is about where I expected almost everyone, except for Trey. Trey came out of the woodwork. I thought Trey would be towards the bottom of the top 10. But this was definitely a show of consistency.
Yes.
You have Evan, who won 3 events but came in 7th, and you have Trey, who only won 1 event, who came in 1st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Trey,
and you
honestly,
have Brian, who came.
Yeah.
Like
it's
who tied.
Interesting because Trey, honestly, the only event he didn't do well in is the medley.
Yeah, if he would have done better on the medley, he probably could have topped the 110 point barrier. I'd say he could have gotten that.
But that medley was brutal, and kind of glad I didn't do it, but at the same time, I kind of wish I could go do it. So I don't know, mixed feelings, I guess. Yeah, and then Evan. I mean, Evan really, you could tell he put out hard. Still bummed. I mean, it's still his call to choose not to perform on an event, so he opted out of doing the squat lift because I think it was his quad that was bugging him, or his hip. I can't remember which.
I think you could tell after the super yoke that was what was going on.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he performed, kind of about where I was expecting, maybe with a lot of the things. But the medley, he came out of nowhere. I was not expecting him to do that well with it. And then dumbbell press either. I think I had him at like 4 reps or 5 reps, something like that. And he just kept going. He dominated that. So
yeah, I think he could have gotten 8 or 9 on that, but he didn't have to do 8 or 9.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I think he was the last one to go, wasn't he? So I think he knew he only had to get 7 to win it.
Yeah, he only.
So,
yeah. He was the last. Him and Kevin were the last 2 to go.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, fantastic competition. It is interesting talking about consistency again, because you look at Evan, and Evan, won 3 of the events, and then Kevin won 1, and arguably did a lot worse in a lot of the different events or whatever, but he still placed ahead of Evan, because consistency pays off, especially those last 3. He did really well in the last 3. But yeah, so well, we've been going for a hot minute now, so we should probably start wrapping it up. Oh, let me see. I sent you my thumbnail on IG. If you want to laugh, you can show it. Let me look at it real quick and see what he's got going on here. Is this for the Monday live stream, I'm assuming then?
Yeah, I think he's talking about the uproar on his channel, the clamor.
Okay, let me see if I can share this. Yeah, it's a pretty funny one. Let me see if we go to this. So that's the thumbnail that he's got going on. Highlights versus lowlights. I expected you to actually have, cropped out your hair and done proper highlights and proper lowlights, but I like the wig, the
yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, if anyone's interested, it sounds like Monday, John and I will be working together to do a highlights and lowlights video. Please head over to his channel, subscribe to mine so you can catch all the future stuff. Like this live stream, please. It helps out the algorithm significantly. And yeah, head over to his channel. Apparently, we'll be doing the highlights versus lowlights on Monday then. So, what he say? Dark roots. I'm cheap. There you go. That works. All righty. Well, everyone, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tyler, for joining me on this live stream for talking about the Shaw Classic. Any parting comments about anything?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. This was an experience. As always, follow me on Insta. I'm a lot more on there than I'm on YouTube.
Yeah.
World's Strongest Blacksmith on Instagram, and that's it.
Yeah. Let me pull up your IG as well, so everyone can take a gander at that. So if anyone wants to check out Tyler, here he is on Instagram, World's Strongest Blacksmith. Please follow him. He posts lots of interesting stuff about blacksmithing and strongman. So seems like you're always working on some fun project. You were doing a sword for a while, and what's this? A spear?
Yeah, that spear was for customer. I could not get Instagram to show that in the right direction, and I was like, I was getting frustrated with it, so I was like, post. I don't care.
Yeah. Social media is annoying. But yeah, here you go. See, you're kind of strong.
Yeah. That was 2 months ago.
I know. And it won't play for me now either. But anyways, if you have not
way back in the beginning of June.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for Elberton's coming up. I'm definitely prepared to hold that title.
Nice.
When we're a little closer to it, do you want to do a video on that?
Yeah.
I've had to move it. I've had to move it from the end of September to the end of November.
Okay.
I did not want to do that, but everything's just there, and I think people want a little because I've had to change events 4 times now.
Yeah.
Even though I'm competing in it and everything, and everyone's like, I can't get it done. I'm having issues with the gym owner. So if that doesn't work out, I'm going to have to do this all with my personal equipment.
Yeah. No, definitely just let me know when it's getting closer and everything, when everything gets solidified, and we'll definitely put it out for you.
Yeah, this is not the contest that I'm putting on next year. This is a personal. This is just countywide, not big invite.
Yeah. No, that's fine, man. But awesome. Well, that's about it for tonight. I guess we've been going for about an hour and a half now, so probably let everyone go to bed and finish up their night. So yeah, like I said, please subscribe to my channel. Please like the video as always. And as always, just remember to improve that 1% every day. So that's all for tonight. Thanks, everyone.